about business analytics, and I put in brackets in the cloud because I understand that the underlying theme of this entire series is about cloud computing, from the various elements of what can be done. But one of the things that when I was approached and asked to talk about is kind of how to go just beyond the cloud and the importance of business analytics, whether it's done in or out. It kind of doesn't really matter to a certain degree. Now, the last sentence there, it's more than just data, is the real focus here. So I would like to grab your attentions for this talk. And because we're not such a big group here, let's keep this informal. Ask me questions, stop me in the middle. I know traditionally, especially here in Asia, it's like always wait to the end and ask the questions. Please stop me. If there's the last thing I want to do is be talking for an hour continuously, although I can do it. Okay, let me just introduce myself first of all, and I'll just have one slide of where I'm from. So my name is David Hardoon. I've actually been doing analytics in research for quite some time now. I used to work in the UK. I actually was in A-Star for a bit. And for the last year and a bit, I've actually been working for a company for SAS. My role there is on the principle of analytics. So pretty much anything that falls under the space of analytics, be it statistics, optimization, forecasting, predictors, and so forth, kind of falls down onto my cater. But enough about that. SAS, the company I work for. Been around for quite a few years, since 1976. They actually started as a statistical suite for agriculture. But since then has grown for, I think in total we have about 350 products. Very much focused on analytics from day one. Everything we do is focused on analytics and business analytics. Now, if you want to find out more, I'll be more than happy to tell you. But like I said, just one slide so you know who I am and where I'm coming from. To put the talk into context, I thought I'll flash up this slide from IDA. And these are the various areas that is currently of focus of IDA. From the whole one inbox of data repository, social media, which is a big buzz, open data surfaces, business analytics is up there, and cloud computing and sustainable technologies. So just kind of highlighting that this is actually a major focus pretty much from the beginning of this year in business analytics and how businesses can go beyond the traditional, I'll explain a bit later on, but the traditional, let's say, Excel. Not that I have anything against Excel, but trying to see how you can have foresight, how you can uncover information and insight from data. In this particular talk, I'll actually kind of start by explaining what is business analytics and how it's of relevance in a cloud context, or actually not in a cloud context. That to a certain degree doesn't really matter. And I'll actually narrow down and also focus about social media, and because I thought it's a recent buzz. How we can actually use all that information that's being put on blogs, on Facebook, even newspapers online, and actually use it for your advantage, whether from a corporation point of view or personal point of view. And one simple example for that is once upon a time, social media or social newscasting, whatever you want to call it, used to report what happened in the news, so traditional news, like on TV and so forth. Nowadays, it's the exact opposite. When you go and open CNN, it's reporting what's actually happened online. It's kind of an interesting trend that's going on. Yeah, it's there. It's really, believe it or not, it's there. So, first question, and this is, especially because this is what I do most of my day, what is business analytics? It's a question I get a lot of times, and I think the culprit of the problem of how to define is analytics. There are various, depending who you are, and I'll give an example. In my previous role, I was in iSquare, in data mining department. In that department, we have people who did databases, people who did, let's say, more theoretical analytics, statistician, and so on. And if you ask every single one of them what's analytics, they'll be like, oh, it's databases. Oh, it's math. Oh, it's this. So it actually covers a lot. So what is business analytics? I thought the nice way of illustrating it is to disambiguate it from business intelligence. Now, that's a buzzword that I'm sure everyone has heard. It's been going for quite some time. So what's business intelligence? It's the collection, integration, and presentation of data. In a nutshell, it's whichever form it may be, on your BlackBerries, on your iPhones, through a web portal, MSQL, through an Excel, doesn't matter. But it's the presentation of data in a nutshell. Whereas business analytics is fundamentally focused on classification, analysis, and interpretation of that data. Now, there's lots of argument going on here, and actually I had one with the close friend the other day, of whether business analytics is just a subset of business intelligence. Can be. I'm not going to be the person who said it's not. All I'm saying is that when you're talking about business intelligence versus talking about business analytics, do you know that the key differential there is this ability of actually employing analytics, not just the reporting of data, as in taking several thousand lines of of Excel and just summarizing it up and presenting it in a way that humans can understand it. A different way of kind of illustrating it is through this two-dimensional plot of business value versus degree of intelligence. Now, you'll see what I mean. Now, assume you're a corporation, public, private, doesn't really matter, and you're going through an annual report. A fundamental question. This is something that on the next 4 steps that I'll show, I'll be very surprised if not all companies do it. You would ask, what has happened? Historically. Okay, what are the events that happened? Can I understand them? You will then want to understand, go down further deeper. How many times did it happen? How often? Where did it happen? Now, these, again, all questions that can be answered using very traditional approaches. You may go into what's known as OLAP, Online Analytical Processing, to further understand, even furthermore, where exactly is the problem. And alerts. How do I react in respect to those 3? Now, as I mentioned, this is standard practice. I'm not planning to tell you anything new because you're familiar with this. And the real point in which analytics kicks in, i.e. the business analytics aspect of it, is the 5th step. Why is it happening? Because notice these ones, okay, it's telling you it has happened. Where it happened, how many times it happened. Yes, but why has it happened? How can I preemptively prepare myself for it not happening again, or potentially happening again, if it's a good one? From statistical analysis, notice that even there, you're only looking at historical data. It's all the past. Now, that's equivalent. Now, if you take this as a business, and you compare that to driving a car, that's equivalent to driving a car without a front windscreen. I'm quite sure none of you do that. Therefore, you want to have that ability of looking what's going to come in front of you. Going beyond historical data towards the future. Can I forecast what's going to happen? What is the likelihood of these trends are going to continue? How should I react? How should I prepare for it? If it's maintenance of machines, social trends, stock exchange, I don't know, actually, probably not stock exchange, it's quite a difficult problem, but just example. Furthermore, going in that is predictive modeling. What will happen next? How can I preempt it? And kind of consider the creme de la creme in my mind of optimization, also referred to as operation research. They're interchangeable every now and then. Is what is the best that can happen? And what do I mean by what is the best that can happen? How can I take all these previous steps, including these ones, and combine them in such a way that I can optimize a business process? I.e., how can I maximize revenue given the operational constraints? How can I minimize my costs? For example, I came in a taxi. Now, when someone wants to reserve a taxi and he sends that text message, now you can just randomly allocate a taxi driver to go to him, but it could be a taxi driver that's really far away. You may want to find a taxi driver who's closer to that particular person. But what is closest? Maybe it's closest by distance, maybe it's closest by time of travel. How can I actually operate and optimize those particular aspects? That's just an example, because I just came by a really, really long taxi drive. Now, also to kind of illustrate the differences, this is business intelligence. And that's business analytics. Now, I'll give you a moment to digest it and take a sip of water. So, just as I have I have my 13-month-old daughter doesn't speak yet, but I'm pretty sure she will, hopefully soon. Like a kid asks, why? So why have we suddenly forgot that when we're doing business? Why? Why is something happening? Why are people coming and borrowing certain books? We're in a library. Is it specifically because they're a certain age group? Perhaps not. Perhaps there's some other characteristics that attribute them to being these types of book, of taking books on time, or not bringing back on time, or taking a book from one library and go to other libraries. Can I forecast the trend of what kind of books I need? What kind of books do I need? I can't really think of an example for optimization in Book Scenario, so sorry about that. Okay. So I thought, okay, maybe it'll be interesting to some people of the implementation of business analytics. And I'll just show this in a high-level perspective as a roadmap. You have some data sources, whether it be internal, external, external data, maybe online, and so forth. And the end users, the consumers, they can be the analysts, the power users who actually do development and so forth, or just information consumers, high-level analysts, CEOs, CFOs, and so forth. Now, here's the case where I'm kind of representing it as an underlying flow. Speaking from a cloud computing perspective, whether it's residing locally within your own infrastructure or not, again, it doesn't matter. The key message here is what you do with it. So, data management. Oh, sorry. Data management. Okay, you know that? The ability. Okay, I'm just going to click all the buttons so it comes up all the way. There we go. So this is what we consider the business analytics framework. From your data sources, data management, residing in some data hub, your traditional business intelligence of query and reporting. Okay, I've called it here advanced analytics, but essentially the business analytics. So all the various analytical process, be it the statistical, the predictive, the mining, the text analytics, which I'll discuss later, residing here. And you see it's feeding back to the business intelligence. Because naturally, all the statistics that you do, all this analysis that you do, analytical analysis, you have to consume it. And I feel sometimes it's the reason why the two terms get mixed up. Because most of the times, we don't see that layer. We only see the output. So we only see a report. So when we see a report that has no analytics and we see a report that has analytics, we don't know. We just see the report. And naturally, it gets pumped out. Now, illustrating this in perhaps a different way, and I always call this the pizza box, is the business analytics framework, exactly as before. Your starting point, which is your data management, and in any, really, any project and any attempt that you go online, this will be about 60 to 70% of your effort. If you know the saying, junk in, junk out. Going from that, the analytical level, which sometimes is a hidden one, of churning your data, quality assurance, integration, to the reporting layer. Now, business solution simply means a pre-packaging of the three for a specific industry, but it's not relevant for this particular presentation. Now, again, just to make sure the point is highlighted, if you take out this level of the pizza box, that's BI. All of three is BA. Data management. I'll kind of flick through these because it's just a couple of pretty pictures of various aspects of data management. Now, again, I mentioned whether it's done on the cloud or locally, doesn't matter to a certain degree. Of making sure you're getting the right data. Because when you're going about answering a business problem through an analytical process, the question is, okay, do you have the data to support it? If you want me to be able to predict, a simple one, well, not that simple, but an example. If you want to predict the weather, but the data you give me is the numbers of chairs in rooms, obviously there's going to be a disconnect there. So it really is a very crucial stage. And interestingly enough, sometimes when people go down the exploratory approach of saying, you know something, I have data. I don't know what's really in it. You'll do a data mining exercise, and you'll see what type of information is churned out of it, which then the business domain expert will review, understand, and say, actually, this makes sense. Let's see what's actually causing it. And you're kind of like a feed forward from a result to data, result to data, result to data, continuously trying to get new information out of it. The analytical layer. Okay, again, and this is just a pictorial representation of what I mentioned by a forecasting, when you have a historical trend, but you want to be able to go beyond the past and understand what's going to happen in the future. Regression techniques, visualization, very, very important points of how to actually represent analytics and so forth. Finally, the reporting one is which is obviously much prettier, of how you actually consume that information. Through your traditional KPIs, which ironically enough, I never even knew that term until coming to Singapore. Through like a geomap, another geomap, and the iPhones and Blackberries and so forth. But I'm not going to dwell on this too much. Okay. The various touch points within the business analytics framework. You'll have your management, your business managers, your analysts, your business intelligence team, and the IT. And you have various responsibilities across. From the informational portals, and personalized views, which will pretty much run across, i.e., me being a manager, I don't log on and see information for the IT team. Vice versa. For being an analyst, you want to present to me information that's relevant to me to do my job. Just an example of various elements that could be of relevance to the particular team. So naturally, the advanced and guided analytics could be relevant to the analyst and the BI, self-service reporting and analysis, and so forth and so forth. Whereas the IT team, naturally, the administration, management, and development. Whereas most of the time, this is going to be a cloud. It's not going to be anyone's worry. Okay. Again, I'll just highlight the point that please do stop me if you have any thoughts or questions, or contradict me even. Okay. So all this time I've been talking very much fluffy. You have this, you have this, you have this concept. Now let me slightly narrow it down and talk about something slightly more specific. And, sorry, didn't mean that specific. And, there you go. I thought this would be of interest. I thought, I may be wrong. An area called social mining, and I kind of did a play of words. Essentially, it's the element of data mining, but on social data. And it's really a buzz. I mean, look what has happened around the world. A revolution across the Middle East, the uprising to a certain degree, temporary, in London, UK. The very interesting buzz that happened in the recent general elections within Singapore of the netizens, which caused quite of interest. There's a lot of information there. I'll give you a nice little example, which I always like to iterate, on how important this is. Apple. I don't know how many of you have iPhones in this room. I'm assuming there's a few. If any of you remember, back when iPhone 4 was released, it just so happened that if you held it in a certain way, you kind of spoiled your reception, a tiny bit. Let me tell you a secret. There is no phone out there that if you do not hold it in a certain way, does not spoil the reception. All phones have weak spots, where you just block the reception. But Apple, being Apple, and maybe I shouldn't say it's being recorded, was slightly arrogant in its response. People responded online, and it created a feed forward. It created a buzz. Oh, why is this? Why is this? Why is this? And there was no response to that. It wasn't picked up. So it basically just kept on bubbling until the point when Apple had to say, look, I'm really sorry, had to cough up a couple of millions to offer various treats and so forth. Another example, KFC. I don't know if any of you read this, because it actually happens in the States. A few months back, I can't remember, where a couple of employees did a few things in the kitchen. We always don't want to think about those stuff in restaurants. But it happened. And someone caught it on camera and uploaded it. KFC can't control it as a corporation. But it happened within its premise under its employees. People responded. Oh, what are they doing? How are they doing this? Why are they doing this? And KFC did not pick that up. Did not pick up that social buzz, that social trend that was happening for 48 hours. Now, in marketing terms, and maybe Mark can actually nod his head on that one, 48 hours is a lifetime. By that time that they finally got up and said, we're sorry, it was too late. So social is quite important. Now, I love this slide. It's either I use this slide or I use a slide with a lot of computers, but I thought I'm too geeky anyway, so I'll just use this one. For the last 10 years or so, we've been obsessed with the collection of data. Like, when is the last time you actually deleted an email? We collect everything. Transaction logs, credit cards, and much we don't want to think about that. When you go and whoever has a passion card, every time you swipe it, when you go in the MRT, we collect data. And all these years, corporations was like, we have to store it. We have to store it. And now people woke up and said, what do we do with it? We have terabytes of data. And We don't know what to do with it. Now, don't get me wrong. People are absolutely fantastic with finding patterns. I can give you an Excel sheet of a couple of hundred rows, a couple of hundred columns, and tell you, find me the pattern. I will put money on the table that you will find it. Now, if I give you that exact same Excel sheet, let's say someone's credit card transaction, over the last 10 years, good luck. You won't find it. And that's exactly that point we've reached. Example. And Wikipedia stole that one. The source of all knowledge, that and Google, they kind of compete with each other. Now, assume you're a corporation, a bank. Now, currently, correct me, I mean, I may be wrong with some of them, but a lot of times it's a mass media approach. You have a new credit card, you have a new loan, you basically say, okay, you owe my customers, here. Do you want a credit card? 80% of you will say probably no. Why are you giving me this junk? Now, if you had the ability within your pool of people to understand who should I target for that credit card, who should I target for that loan, can I actually understand from the behavioral pattern? And when I say behavioral, I mean behavior within the bank. And this actually works, it's very familiar if anyone have used Amazon or Netflix and so forth. Let's say these people here, they have uptaken a loan that was offered to them. And now these are a whole bunch of people that I haven't offered the loan to, but are very similar in their shopping habits, very similar in the way they use expenditures. Well, it makes sense then. I'm going to offer them a car too. But if these guys are completely different, maybe not. Maybe I should offer them something else that is similar from another person. Now, that's exactly what Amazon does when it offers you a book, a recommendation. How does it do that? It sees another person who likes the same types of book as you, and it sees that he bought a book or she bought a book that you didn't. Would you like that book? This is very much from an external-facing perspective. How to interact, how to be more targeted with your media, or marketing, sorry. But also this can be done internally. For example, from an HR perspective, who will leave? Why? Now, when I put up this slide, I don't mean this in the sense of putting up a massive wall and saying you cannot leave. That can't be stopped. But this is more for understanding internally, for the purpose of perhaps what's going to happen to me as a corporation. Now, if I lose people, if people go to another job, and it happens, critical jobs, key skills, and top talent, to allow you to prepare in advance that this period of time, in 2 years from now, I need to prepare for having this gap of people. I need to prepare to having these type of talents because given the pattern, they're likely the ones that I have right now are likely to leave. It's basically the ability of understanding. Now, how would one go about doing this? And this is where the key element of business analytics, and in this particular sense, social mining, data mining, comes into play. As I mentioned before, people excel with finding patterns. And when I give you that Excel sheet with a couple of rows and a couple of columns, you'll figure it out. But if I now give you a massive pool of all that information you collected about a person, where their country, their average use, whether they increase usage, whether they accepted an offer, who are their contacts, their marital state, whether they responded to an email, what car they're driving, everything and everything. That's what we're doing now. We're collecting everything about everything. And their pattern expenditure. And you're saying, what are the most key attributes of this group of people so I can offer them something? I don't know. Most likely you're going to narrow it down to just 2 or 3 and do some, okay, does this work, does this work? Perhaps there's a combination of them. So the fundamental element of mining is to be able to automatically identify what are those crucial key attributes that explain behavior. So you could have gone from that mass pool and basically find that for, let's say, the person who will take children's books, their propensity of taking that book, or a person who's going to churn, leave your mobile phone company or leave your company or so forth, is simply related to these elements. The usage increase, recommended friends, average use, and age group. Just an illustration. You want to basically go from that big pool of information to something that is manageable, that you can understand. Now, this is also I'll mention here is a key point because sometimes people ask me, it's like, David, are you trying to, make me lose a job by, offering all this fancy stuff and everything? Absolutely not. And I think it's a very crucial point to explain that business analytics works hand in hand with domain knowledge. It's not to replace it. Because in the end of the day, if you rely on this 100%, it's just trying to find a pattern. What if that pattern is meaningless? You need to have the domain expert to understand it. These tools, these capabilities, you can think of it in a simplistic form as a filter. Bring it up to that level when it's been already reduced. You can now explain it. Does this make sense to me? Does this not make sense to me? Another element, and I'll use the example that I mentioned before of borrowing books from a library. You now have the population of book borrowers. Now, beforehand, I may simply say, okay, men to one side, women to another side, age group to this side, another age group to another side, and keep it very specific on the characteristics. But maybe that's not the case. Maybe that is too rigid an approach to determining the types, the group types that will pick certain books. Perhaps you want to let it determine automatically, to cluster the data, to segment the data, and find what is that group? What are those key attributes of that group that make it unique? What are those attributes for that key group that make it unique? And you may now find that actually it's a mixture of sex, age, location, and so forth. But there's some kind of other element of the characteristics, the behavior, that put them together in that group. Now, this group could be, let's say, high-frequent borrowers who always bring the book back on time. This group can be, they always bring it back late. Always. This group, something else. Please.
You mentioned automatically.
Yes.
What do you mean by automatic?
You're given, to a certain degree, the system is given the historical pattern of behavior. You know my information about me, and you know information about all these other people. And you know that I bring back the book, I take the book. I bring back the book, and I bring back the book. The fundamental goal, and that's what I mean by automatically, is find the commonality of behavior. Find those key attributes that are defining that group who do certain things similar. Let's say, borrowing books on time, returning them on time, not bringing them back on time. Now that can then be translated to a business process of, okay, if you have this type of characteristics, I want to keep my eye on you because I know you're going to bring it back late. How is it done automatically is through the analytical process. In this particular case, if I just throw it off my head, it's just using a clustering approach, say like K-means or principal component analysis and so forth. It's to find the statistical significance from the historical pattern of behavior. We do the exact same thing. The only difference is we will only use that one attribute. We will look at that one key attribute that we, from our domain knowledge, will say is important, age, sex, whatnot, and then we'll see, is there a relationship? Now what I'm saying is, go beyond that one. Go to as many. Something that you as a person could